What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to show you how to rebuild a turbocharger. So what we're working on today is a turbocharger off of a Volkswagen TDI. It is the VNT17, and we're going to replace the entire core on it, get it functioning and working properly. So here's the turbo we're working on. Like I said, it's a VNT17, and we're going to be replacing the entire core on it. So here's the new core. This is from Xman Turbos, and it also comes with a billet wheel. So this is all brand new, set up, and ready to go into the turbo. So what we got to do is strip this thing apart. I'm going to show you step by step how to completely disassemble the turbo, get the new core installed, and then there is a few adjustments we need to make with the VNT setup here, mainly the stop screw, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So real quick, before we start ripping into this turbo, I want to say if you guys need a turbo, injectors, pump, cam, anything like that for a TDI, and even other diesels like BMWs, I think he does some BMW diesels and other diesels out there, but Xman Turbos is the go-to place for turbochargers, injectors, all that good stuff. On my red TDI swap Toyota, I have a Xman Turbo and Xman injectors. My daily driver TDI Jetta also has an Xman Turbo. Nothing but good things to say about them, and amazing prices. So Xman is actually located in the UK. If you guys are in the US, don't worry, he does ship to the US and amazingly fast. I usually get my order within a week at my doorstep from the UK, so amazing shipping, amazing prices. I'll have a link down below in the description if you want to go to his store, check out what he has. So he does a lot of like hybrid builds on turbos. He does a lot of the GT turbos and also a lot of the GTB turbos for these Volkswagens. So definitely check him out if you're in the market for a new turbo. And I'll also drop a link for this core. So this is for the VNT17. I know there's a lot of those turbos out there. So if you guys have, say, a blown up 17 and need to rebuild it, this core is what you need. You don't need to go buy an entire new turbo. You know, a new turbo is about 700 bucks. This core is only $200, so a lot cheaper than replacing your entire turbo. So before we start tearing this thing apart, a good idea is to soak these exhaust housing bolts around the exhaust housing holding the core in, because with all the heat, they really do get stuck. And then also, if they're not coming out right away, you can take a torch and heat the housing up right here. That'll expand the housing a little bit and make them bolts easier to come out. The last thing you want to do is break one of these bolts, because then you'll be drilling it out and extracting it. So we want to avoid that. So we're going to soak it with a penetrating lubricant, let that sit, and then we'll try it with a wrench. If it does break loose, no problem, we'll take it out. If it's a little tight, we can take a torch, like I said, torch this, heat it up, and it should come out. All right, we got these bolts soaking in WD-40. So now what we can get started on is we can pull the actuator. There's just two 10mm nuts holding the actuator onto the bracket, and then a C-clip onto the lever. So we can get that off, and then we can pull the cold side. These bolts don't see much heat, so they're usually pretty freed up. 8mm head bolts. So just go around, take every bolt around the housing. The cold side will come right off, and then we can get working on the hot side bolts. All right, we got the cold side off, so now we can start working on getting the core out of basically the hot side and the whole manifold. So you just work your way around the 10mm bolts holding the core into the hot side. And like I said, if these bolts don't want to come out, grab a torch and heat up the housing around the bolts. That'll expand the housing and make them bolts come out a little bit easier. So last thing you want to do is bust any of these bolts off. So let's see what we can do. we got lucky on this turbo. These bolts came out no issues. So now we got to pull the whole core out of the turbo. So this can be, especially if it's an older turbo, it can be pretty stuck in there. So you can grab a rubber mallet and just gently hit on this core, tap on it around, get it broke free, and it should slide right out of the turbo. All right, we got the old core out, and here's the whole vane assembly. So this is basically the variable vanes. You can see the vanes in here opening and closing. So the adjustment we need to make is with this stop screw. So that what this stop screw does is it keeps the vanes from closing 100%. If you were to close these vanes 100%, there would be nowhere for the exhaust to go, and you'd blow your turbo up immediately. So basically what we're trying to accomplish here is getting the stop screw on the new core set correctly to where the vanes are open the same amount from the old core to the new core. Now you could do that with adjusting the stop screw here, measuring how much it's sticking out, but that isn't very accurate because there's so many variances with the cast housing here on the core. There's a variance in the plate here, there's variance in literally every part. It could be very, very minor, but there's still some difference. So you can see the vanes underneath this main plate opening and closing. So what we got to do is put the old core back in. We got to adjust this lever against the stop screw. We got to pull the old core out of the housing, making sure not to move this vane assembly at all. So just pull it straight up and out. And then we got to look in here, and we got to somehow mark the position of these vanes. So we could do it up top on here, but there's a little bit of play between this main plate and the actual vane. So the most accurate way to do it is under here with the actual vane, because that is what we need to adjust. So we're going to put the old core in, we're going to close the vanes against the stop screw, pull the core out, and then probably just scribe a line underneath on the housing marking the position of those vanes, and then we can set the new core in, see where that is positioned at, and if there's adjustments that we need to make, we'll adjust that stop screw so that when we put the new core in and adjust that lever against the stop screw, the vanes are in the same exact position as the old core. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to match the old core versus the new core and get these vanes positioned the exact same with that stop screw. I think before I do any of that, I'm going to pull this whole VNT setup out and clean everything up. Make sure it's nice and clean. It's just a lot easier to work on a clean turbo. So we're going to pull this out. How these come out is there's the main plate here, and then there's these rollers, and then there's pins, and then this whole main VNT setup is bolted in with 3 Torx bolts. And it'd also be a very good idea to squirt some WD-40 into these bolts here holding the plate on, because these can break. They're a very small bolt and they can break off. So we're going to soak those. We'll pull it all out, get everything cleaned up, and then we can start adjusting our new core. Alright, we got the whole vane assembly out. So like I showed you, there's 3 pins and these little rollers that this main plate rotates on, and then this vane assembly is bolted in with 3 I think they're T25 Torx, and then underneath the plate there's 3 of these spacers. So just make sure you have everything, make sure you don't lose anything. So we're gonna get this stuff all cleaned up. I got a parts washer tank, so I'm gonna use that. You could use a carb cleaner, brake cleaner, and a brush. Scrub everything up. I'm gonna clean the housing, I'm gonna clean the cold side, I'm gonna clean everything right now, and then we'll put the vane assembly back in the housing, and then we'll start getting the new core adjusted to where it should be. All right, we got the whole VNT setup back in the housing. So one thing to note with this main plate is the orientation of it. So you can see the locating pin right here. There's a pin in the core that sits inside that hole there. You want to line this notch up right here for the lever. So you can see the pin there, the lever here. So you want to line those two up. And then also this plate, I believe you can put it in backwards. So the edge on the top side here has basically kind of a rounded edge, and the bottom side is kind of a sharp edge. So you want to put the rounded side up. So now that this is all back together, we can throw the core back in. So what we want to do is get the core in and push the lever against the stop screw, and then we'll pull the core out, and we'll have to look down inside of here, and we'll have to put a mark there. I don't know if there's really a way to get anything in there to measure the gap between the vanes, but we can put a mark on the housing in relation to the vane position, and then we can transfer the new core in and see where that is. And we just have to, like I said, we just have to fine tune it. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. And yes, there is a correct way to do this, and that is with a flow bench, but 99% of people aren't going to have a flow bench, so we have to do it this way. Get it really close, and then once you get the turbo back on the car, you're going to want to do a boost log. Make sure everything is working correctly, and if it's not working 100% correct, once you get it back on the car, you can adjust this and dial it in just doing your boost log. So we're going to get it super close anyway. So let's get started, get the old core back in, and get a mark on the position of the vanes. Alright, so you got to set the core in. There's two things you need to line up. That locating dowel on the outside, and you need to locate the lever into that main plate. So once you get it in, you can hear this. You can make sure you can hear the vanes turning. So what you want to do is completely push the lever against the stop screw, and then very gently pull the whole core straight up so you don't move the position of the vanes. And then we can get inside there and make our mark. Alright, hopefully you guys can see that underneath that main plate, you can see one of the vanes, and you can see a gap between the other vane. So what we need to do, like I said, we need to mark that position so we know where those vanes are supposed to be with that stop screw set against the lever. Alright guys, this might be hard to see. So along this vane, I made a mark with a pencil that runs along the entire length of the vane. So it should be pretty easy to be able to get that line back up with the new core. I just took a pencil and kind of shaved it down so I could get the right angle on it. So let's get the new core in here and see if we can get that to line up. Alright, we got this all aligned and got the set screw set correctly. So one other way you can do this is, once you get it close, you can set the old core in, set it against the stop screw, pull it straight out, and then drop the new core in with a lever against the stop screw the whole time, and it should drop straight in and drop right into that little groove there. That lever should hit that groove and slide right in without any binding or having to turn that lever at all. So I'll show you guys really quick what that looks like. So I got the core in here. I'm gonna put the lever all the way against the stop screw and pull the whole cartridge out. And then when I put this one in, I'm gonna hold my finger on the lever against the stop screw, and it should drop in without binding or having to wiggle this arm at all. Right there. And you can see the vanes are working, if you can hear that. So we got it set up, so now we just got to obviously bolt all this on, bolt the cold side on, and actuator and all that good stuff, and we'll be done. Alright, we got the new core bolted in, so obviously make sure the shaft spins fine and make sure the vanes will move freely and there's no binding, and you can actually hear them move just to make sure that you got everything lined up underneath. So now we can get the cold side on, get the actuator on, and we'll be done. Alright, one more test we got to do is make sure the rod is the correct length. So with just a Mighty Vac or any cheap vacuum gauge like this, it should start moving the arm around 3 inches of vacuum, and it should fully seat the VNT lever against the stop screw at around 18 to 20. So let's hook this up and we'll start pumping. And right there, I'm about 7, a little over 7. It's starting to move. And just pump it up. Now I'm over 20 now, and it's still not touching. So this rod is too long. We're gonna have to shorten the rod. There it is, guys. Turbo's all back together, looking good, and should work like brand new for many, many miles. So hope this video helps you guys out. If you got a blown up turbo, want to replace your cartridge instead of just replacing the entire turbo, which costs a lot more money, Xman has these cores in stock, ready to ship out for the VNT17. I'm not sure if he's got cores for other turbos, but this is one that he does have cores for. And like I said, all the links for these parts will be linked down in the description box if you want to check them out. And you can find Xman on Facebook as well, Xman Turbos, and he responds there too. So if you have any questions for him, hit him up and see if you can't work a deal. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Really hope you enjoyed it. Smash that thumbs up button, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.